Hello everybody, this is Ron again with another weekly lesson, and beside me is our damn reporter, Lauren, and that stands for Director of Alternative Marketing. I know what it is now. All right, the message for this week is additional forms that we need when we're going out and getting a purchase and sale agreement signed from the FSBO, right?
Right.
Okay, last week we talked about the purchase and sale agreement, so if you missed that lesson, go back and get it. And if you missed that lesson, then you didn't know that that agreement is located in your resource section on your Gold Club membership site. So if you're not a Gold Club member, you know what to do. Go to ronsgoldclub.com and get registered right away, because everything I'm about to show you is on that site as well. I'm just going to go through a few additional forms here that we get at closing, but we don't get these signed until closing. So guys, remember that. What I'm showing you now, you don't need to worry about until the closing, which means that your attorney is going to prepare the deed and the HUD-1 closing statement. These are just additional things that you want to show your attorney, and a couple of them I think are pretty important that you get your attorney to complete for you or get completed, but these are not something you need to worry about yourself getting signed in the house. All right, now I took these right out of my Quick Turn Real Estate School manual. This is the boot camp manual for my Quick Start Real Estate School. As you can see, it's quite thick. There's a lot of stuff in here. In fact, this manual is a work of art. I got a lot of years in this thing, and some of the pages that came out of here are the documents that I'm going to go over right now because Lauren asked me to, and we're going to do them quickly. So note that all of these agreements and all of these forms are located on ronsgoldclub.com under the resource section, if you remember. So let's start with what I call my CYA letter, which means cover your assets. And there's a great one in this manual. I want this signed by every single person that you get a deed from, subject to. It's very important you get this signed, because this clearly spells out that you did not make any promises that you couldn't keep. The seller literally assigns every single paragraph, and when you go read this thing, you'll see why I want it done. There absolutely can be no claim of misrepresentation when the seller signs this. And when your attorney gets a hold of this, he's going to love this. This is a very special document that we created right here. It's called Seller's Acknowledgments. So that's the way you find it in your resource section. And there are 21 things here that the seller acknowledges that was explained to them before they before they closed and deeded the property to you. So go get that one. That's applicable if you're taking over a debt that is current. Now, there's another one in here right behind that called CYA letter for all houses you buy with payments in arrears. This one is an add-on to this one. I'm going to get this signed whether they're current, or if they're current. I'm going to get this signed if they're not current, but along with this one, I want this one as well. So if they're not current, I want both of these signed. This was a much shorter disclaimer, and basically it says you're in foreclosure, your payments in arrears, the bank is going to foreclose on you if they haven't already, and that I'm promising that I will do my best to discount your debt, and if I can't discount your debt, it's going to go to the foreclosure sale, and I've made you no promises otherwise. And so that's what this one says. So again, this one only applies if they're behind on their payments. Now, it's called Disclosure Regarding Real Estate Transaction, but it clearly says here at the top, with payments in arrears. So don't get these two mixed up. And I don't know exactly what it reads on your resource list of documents, but I think when you read it, it's obvious that it's designed for people that are in default. So I have two CYA letters, one to be used with every transaction, the other one to be used only if they're in default. Again, these are signed at closing. These are not something you get signed in the kitchen. Okay. Next, there is an authorization to release information. I actually went over that last week, didn't I?
Yes.
Yeah, when I did the purchase and sale agreement. That does nothing more than give you permission to get information on their existing loan. All right? And that's followed by an addendum for possession after closing. Now, this one I created out of experience. I bought a house several times. I gave them all the money they had coming. They promised me they'd move by blank, and guess what happened?
Right.
They didn't move by blank. Okay. One case, I literally had to evict the previous owner out of the house after I gave them all the money that I promised them. Their motivation to move went away. So, in time and a few $1,000s in lost money, I realized that I better have an addendum that they sign if they're not going to move out the day of the sale. I always try to get the seller out of the house the day I close or prior. Sometimes it's not possible. Sometimes they have to have a little bit of money before they can even move. If that's the case, I'll never give them all the money they have coming. I'll withhold some of it until they're out of the house and it's left clean, and that's what this beautiful addendum says. There's nothing else like this, I know, because I wrote this. So it's called Addendum for Possession After Closing. So if you go to the resource section, you'll find it there. It's a jewel, and it'll save you a lot of grief. And lastly, now this one is only to be used if you feel the need. This is a dynamite document. It's called Affidavit and Memorandum of Agreement Concerning Real Estate. And what this is the magic document that you sign and record that prevents the seller from selling the house behind your back. Now, I'm not going to get into great detail on this here. I do that in my courses and certainly in my training. But basically, this is a protection device. This is not required to be signed. Your attorney does not get this signed, incidentally. This is not something that's signed at closing. This simply says that you have an agreement to buy the house, that it expires on blank date, and if anybody wants to contact you, they contact you, and they've got your name and your phone number right in here. This is to be recorded on public record only if you think the seller is trying to sell the house behind your back after you have a legitimate purchase and sale agreement signed. And it happens from time to time. If you fill this out, and if you have your signature notarized and you record this, it becomes a lien on the, or a cloud on the seller's title, and it creates a title problem if they try to sell behind your back. This has saved a lot of students a lot of money and saved them the deal, or had the seller pay them to go away if they got a higher offer. So enough on that for now, but this is also in your forms and agreements section on your Gold Club site. Okay, now with that said, what else have we had to cover today? Something about insurance and
when to buy insurance.
And when to record?
Yes.
Okay. All right, let's start with when to record. That one's easy because you're not going to be recording anything with the possible exception of that one affidavit that I just described to you. You would be recording this if and only if you feel the need. And by the way, you don't record this unless you just feel that the seller is going to go behind your back and try to sell it. Remember, guys, just because you have a purchase and sale agreement doesn't mean that the seller won't go around you and sell the property, especially if they're leaving town and they know that, hey, deal with me later if you can find me. Well, I don't want them to be able to sell it if I can help it, but I'm not going to record that document unless I feel the need. Now, all the rest of these, your attorney gets signed. So recording is something that normally your attorney does or your title company does. You don't do it. Anytime you buy a house, your attorney is going to record the deed. If it's a subject to deed, they're going to record it. If it's seller financing, they're going to record it. So that's not an issue for you. Anytime you sell a house, whether you sell it owner financing or whether you just transfer the deed to someone else or whether you cash out, your closing agent's going to do all that recording for you. So it would be very, very rare that you'd ever have to go down to a courthouse and record anything. So don't worry about recording. What you don't record is your lease option agreement when you're selling. Never record an agreement that is not required to be recorded. And the last thing you want to do is put the deal you have with the buyer on public record. So we don't record the lease option agreement. Now, if I'm buying with an option or I'm buying with a lease option, I want to record a memorandum of that option, but I'll never want to record the actual agreement itself so everybody knows the deal. All right?
All right.
Okay, what was next? You're not talking much today, are you?
I know, you're doing most of the talking. That's the better way to do it. I wanted to know if we can do like a way, so when you go to a closing and you present them these papers, you just tell them what to sign?
Well, first of all,
Like if I was the seller.
well, first of all, let's say you're the seller and
Yeah.
but I'm the attorney.
Okay.
The attorney is the closer.
Okay.
Right? The attorney presents them the papers.
And
There's nothing for you to worry about. That's what attorneys do.
But do you have to be there?
No, I'm never at a closing.
Oh.
But everything that's here in this seller's acknowledgement has already been previously discussed anyway. Not everything, but for the most part, they know you're taking over the debt subject to. The bank could call the loan due if some fluke happened. That's all been discussed. So there's no surprises here.
simple.
And by the way, I've never lost a deal because of this seller's acknowledgement. If someone's gonna sell you the house and let you take over their debt, this is not gonna stop them. They know that this is just putting it in writing. So the attorney presents that.
Okay.
The attorney presents, well, you've already got the authorization to
Yeah.
release sign. So the attorney would present the addendum for closing if it was applicable. And it's only applicable if they're gonna live in the house after you've closed and given them all their money. And the affidavit, you would record, the attorney's not gonna do this, so that's it. The rest is up to the attorney. The attorney will also have some other documents, some disclosures, some state stuff that they'll sign as well. All right? So that's
question.
recording. Then you have one about insurance?
When to buy insurance.
Okay. Insurance can only be bought on a property by the property owner.
Okay.
So if I buy the property and I take title, regardless of what entity, I need to insure it. If I'm gonna put a lease option tenant in there, I'm gonna keep that insurance on the property till that lease option tenant cashes me out. I'm buying a landlord policy. The seller had an owner-occupant policy. I'm buying a landlord policy because I'm now a landlord. And I do have to buy a policy. Landlord policy is cheaper than the one the seller's got anyway. Okay? Now, let's suppose I'm selling it. If I'm putting a lease option tenant in there, I have to keep it insured. If I'm selling it with seller financing, it's the buyer's responsibility to bring a policy to closing. If I'm selling it for cash, I could care less anyway, whether the buyer gets insurance or not. So that's it. If I own it, I insure it. If I don't own it, I can't insure it.
Okay.
All right?
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No.
All right. See you next lesson.
Bye.